The emergency beacon screamed across the vast emptiness of space, its desperate signal cutting through the cosmic silence like a knife through flesh. Commander Zeth-9 of the Galactic Empire's Third Fleet jolted awake in his command pod, his eyes snapping open as the ship's artificial intelligence flooded his neural implants with urgent data. "Commander," the AI's voice echoed in his mind, cold and mechanical. "We're receiving a distress signal from the outer rim. Origin, the Sol system." Zeth-9's scaled skin rippled with anticipation. The Sol system, home to the primitive species called humans. For months, the Empire had been planning their conquest of this backwater planet called Earth. Intelligence reports suggested the humans possessed weapons barely beyond chemical explosives and crude nuclear devices. It should be an easy victory, a simple stepping stone toward expanding the Empire's reach into this spiral arm of the galaxy. But something felt wrong. "Patch me through to the signal," Zeth-9 commanded, his voice a low growl that sent vibrations through the ship's metal hull. The bridge materialized around him as his pod opened with a soft hiss. The massive warship Dominator stretched out, in all directions, its dark corridors lit by pulsing blue energy conduits. Crew members from a dozen different alien species moved with practiced efficiency, their movements synchronized like a deadly dance. The main view screen flickered to life, revealing a face that made Zeth-9's blood run cold. It was Captain Vex 7, commander of the Advanced Scout Fleet, or what was left of him. Half of Vex 7's reptilian face was gone, replaced by twisted metal and sparking wires. His remaining eye blazed with terror and pain. "Commander Zeth-9. Vex 7's voice crackled through. "Damaged vocal cords. Do not come to the Sol system, it's a trap. They're not what we thought. The transmission cut to static." Zeth-9 stared at the empty screen, his four hearts beating in an irregular rhythm. In all his years serving the Empire, he had never seen fear like that in a fellow warrior's eyes. Vex 7 had conquered 17 worlds without losing a single ship. What could have reduced him to this broken shell? "Navigation," Zeth-9 barked, his voice echoing through the bridge. "Set course for the Sol system, maximum speed." Lieutenant Cree 4, the ship's insectoid navigator, clicked her mandibles nervously. "Sir, with respect, shouldn't we wait for reinforcements? If Captain Vex 7's fleet encountered difficulties..." "The Empire does not retreat from primitive savages," Zeth-9 snarled, his scaled fist slamming against his command console. "We are the most advanced civilization in the galaxy. We have conquered 1,000 worlds. We will not be stopped by a species that hasn't even achieved faster than light travel." But even as he spoke the words, doubt gnawed at his mind like a parasite. The Empire's intelligence network was vast and thorough. They had studied Earth for decades, cataloging every military installation, every weapon, every potential threat. The humans were divided into primitive nation-states that spent more time fighting each other than preparing for external threats. They should have been easy prey. So why was Captain Vex 7 afraid? The Dominator and its escort fleet of 50 warships began their journey toward Earth, their quantum drives bending space-time around them like a cosmic accordion. What should have taken months at conventional speeds would take only days with their advanced technology. As they traveled through the void, Zeth-9 reviewed the intelligence files on humanity one more time. The species had only recently developed nuclear weapons, and their space program was laughably primitive. They had barely managed to put a few tiny outposts on their moon and had sent crude robotic probes to nearby planets. Their military technology was thousands of years behind the Empire's. Yet something bothered him about the reports. The humans seemed adaptable. In just a few centuries, they had gone from using animal power to splitting the atom. Their rate of technological development was unprecedented in galactic history. Most species took millennia to achieve what humans had accomplished in mere centuries. "Sir," Communications Officer Bleat 2 buzzed through her translator. "We're receiving another transmission, same source as before." "Put it through," Zeth-9 commanded. The view screen flickered again, but this time it wasn't Captain Vex 7. Instead, a human face appeared, young, pale, with short brown hair and intelligent eyes that seemed to look directly through the screen at Zeth-9. Hello, the human said calmly, speaking in perfect galactic standard. My name is Dr. Sarah Chen. I believe you're looking for your friends. Zeth 9's scales bristled. How did this primitive creature know their language? How had they intercepted Imperial communications? Dr. Chen smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Before you ask how I know your language, let me save you some time. We've been listening to your transmissions for quite a while now, learning, preparing. Your captain, Vex 7, was kind enough to provide us with additional information about your fleet composition and weapons capabilities. The human leaned forward, her eyes boring into the camera. He was very cooperative. Zeth 9 felt something he hadn't experienced in decades. Fear. Not the healthy caution of a seasoned warrior, but genuine bone-deep terror. This human spoke with the casual confidence of a predator discussing its prey. I want to make you an offer. Dr. Chen continued, turn around, go home, forget about Earth, forget about humans. Find some other species to bully somewhere far from here. Do this and your captain and his surviving crew will be returned to you unharmed. And if we refuse? Zeth 9 managed to growl. Dr. Chen's smile widened, revealing teeth that seemed far too sharp for an herbivorous species. Then you'll discover why the galaxy's apex predators evolved on a planet where everything is trying to kill everything else. You'll learn why we call our home Earth, because that's where we'll bury you. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. Zeth 9 stared at the empty screen, his mind racing. Everything about the human's demeanor, her casual confidence, her apparent knowledge of Imperial technology, it all suggested that the Empire's intelligence reports were catastrophically wrong. But he was a commander of the Galactic Empire. He had his orders, and the Empire did not negotiate with primitives. Continue on course, he commanded, his voice steady despite the churning in his stomachs. Ready all weapons. Prepare for battle. As the fleet pressed onward toward Earth, none of them noticed the small, almost invisible probes that had been tracking them since they entered the outer reaches of the Sol system. The probes recorded everything: fleet composition, weapon signatures, communications frequencies, tactical formations, and in a hidden facility deep beneath the surface of Earth, Dr. Sarah Chen watched the alien fleet approach on dozens of monitors, her fingers dancing across holographic control interfaces that hadn't existed even 5 years ago. Phase 1 complete, she announced to her team. They took the bait. Begin Phase 2 preparations. The trap was set. The hunters were about to become the hunted. Chapter 2. First Contact. The battle began at the edge of Earth's solar system, near the orbit of Pluto. Zeth 9 expected to face primitive spacecraft, perhaps crude chemical rockets armed with nuclear warheads. What he encountered instead defied everything he thought he knew about human capabilities. They came out of nowhere. Sleek, predatory ships that seemed to materialize from empty space itself. No engine signatures, no heat blooms, no gravitational distortions. One moment the void was empty, the next it was filled with vessels unlike anything in the Empire's extensive databases. Contact! Lieutenant Creefor shrieked, her mandibles clicking frantically. Multiple bogies bearing, they're everywhere, sir, they're everywhere. Zeth 9's tactical display lit up like a star going supernova. Hundreds of human ships surrounded, his fleet in a perfect three-dimensional sphere, their weapons already charging with energy signatures that made his sensors scream warnings. Impossible, he whispered. They don't have this technology. Our intelligence, your intelligence, was designed to be wrong. A new voice cut through the bridge's emergency klaxons. The main view screen activated without anyone touching the controls, revealing another human face. This one belonged to an older man with silver hair and cold blue eyes that seemed to contain the depth of space itself. Admiral Marcus Webb, Earth, Defense Force, the human announced calmly. Commander Zeth 9, I presume? Dr. Chen sends her regards. Zeth 9's 4 hands moved instinctively to his weapon controls. How did you... Our communications are encrypted with quantum encryption? Admiral Webb chuckled, the sound somehow more terrifying than any battle cry. We were quantum entangling particles while your species was still discovering fire. Did you really think we'd let you monitor our planet for decades without noticing? Every probe you sent, every scan you performed, every intelligence report you compiled, we fed you exactly what we wanted you to see. The tactical display showed energy readings that shouldn't have been possible. The human ships were generating power levels that matched Imperial dreadnoughts, ships 10 times their size. The question now, Admiral Webb continued, is whether you're intelligent enough to learn from your mistakes. Last chance, Commander. Withdraw your forces. This doesn't end well for you. Zeth 9's pride warred with his growing fear. The Empire had never retreated. Never. To do so now would mean disgrace, court-martial execution. But the alternative? Open fire, he commanded. The Dominator's primary weapons blazed to life, sending streams of coherent plasma that could melt a moon's surface racing toward the nearest human vessels. The other Imperial ships followed suit, filling space with enough destructive energy to sterilize a planet. For a moment, Zeth 9 dared to hope. The humans' ships were small, clearly built for speed rather than armor. Surely they couldn't withstand the full might of an Imperial battle fleet. The plasma streams struck their targets and simply vanished. What? Zeth 9 stared at his instruments, in disbelief. Where did our weapons go? Absorbed and redirected, Admiral Webb explained conversationally, as if discussing the weather. Thank you for the energy donation. Our ships were running a bit low after the journey out here. The human vessels began to glow with absorbed energy, their hulls pulsing with the same deadly plasma that moments before had been racing toward them. Then, in perfect synchronization, they fired back. The Imperial fleet's shields, energy barriers capable of deflecting asteroid impacts, lasted approximately 3 seconds. Zeth 9 watched in horror as ship after ship in his fleet simply disappeared, not destroyed in massive explosions, not torn apart by overwhelming firepower, but cleanly erased from existence as if they had never been built. The human weapons seemed to unmake matter itself at the quantum level. Impossible, he breathed. This technology is beyond even the Empire. How did you develop it so quickly? Admiral Webb finished. That's the wrong question, Commander. You should be asking how long we've really had it. The Admiral's image was replaced by a series of historical documents that Zeth 9 recognized from the Empire's own archives. Records dating back centuries, documenting the Empire's gradual expansion through this region of the galaxy. But as he watched, the documents changed, revealing information that had never been there before. The Vegan Confederation, Admiral Webb's voice narrated over the images. Conquered by the Empire 200 years ago. What your records don't show is that 3 of their research vessels escaped the final battle. They carried with them the remnants of their civilization's greatest achievement, quantum manipulation technology. New images appeared. Crashed alien ships in Earth's remote forests. Human scientists working alongside tall, graceful beings with large eyes and elongated skulls. The Vegans shared their knowledge with us, the Admiral continued. Not out of kindness, but out of revenge. They wanted to ensure that someone somewhere would be able to stop the Empire's expansion. They chose us because they recognized something in humanity that you failed to see. What? Zeth 9 whispered, watching half his fleet vanish from the tactical display. We're not prey animals, Commander. We never were. On Earth, the apex predators aren't the largest or the strongest. They're the smartest, the most adaptable, the most ruthlessly efficient killers evolution could produce. The surviving Imperial ships tried to retreat, but their quantum drives wouldn't engage. Something was jamming their faster-than-light systems. You studied our planet for decades, Admiral Webb said, his image reappearing on the screen. You cataloged our weapons, our governments, our military capabilities. But you never studied our nature. You never asked why a species that evolved to hunt mammoths with pointed sticks managed to split the atom in just a few thousand years. You never wondered why we're the only species we've encountered that wages war as an art form. Zeth 9's ship shuddered as something latched onto its hull. Through the external cameras, he could see human boarding pods, small, angular craft that cut through the Dominator's armor like it was made of paper. You want to know the real trap, Commander? Admiral Webb's voice took on an almost philosophical tone. It wasn't that we were more advanced than you thought. It wasn't that we had alien allies. The trap was assuming that just because we hadn't left our solar system, we were primitive. Do you know why we never developed faster-than-light travel on our own? Zeth 9 said nothing, transfixed by the horror unfolding around him. Because we never needed to. Every species that was dumb enough to come to us brought the technology right to our doorstep. The Vegans, the Zephyrians, the Quell Mining Consortium. Each time we learned, we adapted, we improved on their designs, and we waited. Explosions echoed through the ship's corridors as human boarding parties fought their way toward the bridge. But these weren't the sounds of weapons Zeth 9 recognized. These were different, quieter, more precise. Your soldiers, Admiral Webb noted, apparently watching the same internal security feeds. They're not dying from energy weapons or projectiles. We're using something much more elegant. Nanomachines that target specific genetic markers. Your troops are essentially dissolving. From the inside out, Zeth 9's scales went cold. You're monsters. No, Commander. We're human. There's a difference, though I suppose it's subtle from your perspective. The bridge doors exploded inward in a shower of sparks and twisted metal. Through the smoke came figures in sleek, form-fitting armor that seemed to shift and flow like liquid mercury. They moved with the fluid grace of born predators, their weapons tracking multiple targets simultaneously. Zeth 9 reached for his sidearm, but his arm wouldn't respond to his mental commands. None of his limbs would. The nanomachines, he realized, with dawning horror. They were already in his system. One of the human soldiers approached him, removing her helmet to reveal a young woman with short black hair and eyes that held no trace of mercy or hatred, only cold, professional efficiency. Commander Zeth 9, she said politely. I'm Sergeant Lisa Park, Earth Defense Force Special Operations. You're going to come with us now. Where? He managed to croak through vocal cords that barely functioned. Sergeant Park smiled, and for the first time, Zeth 9 understood why apex predators evolved teeth. To meet the rest of the zoo. Chapter 3. The zoo, the holding facility, wasn't what Zeth 9 had expected. Instead of crude metal bars or force field cages, he found himself in what appeared to be a luxury hotel suite. The walls were decorated with images of Earth's diverse landscapes. Snow-capped mountains, vast oceans, lush forests. Soft music played from hidden speakers, and the temperature was perfectly calibrated for his species' comfort. It was, he realized, a perfect prison. Through the transparent aluminum window, he could see other suites containing beings from across the galaxy. There was Captain Vex 7, or what remained of him, sitting motionless in a chair staring at nothing. His remaining organic eye had been replaced with a mechanical prosthetic that glowed with soft blue light. In another suite, a massive Quarian warrior paced endlessly, his 6 arms gesticulating wildly as he spoke to someone Zeth 9 couldn't see. The insectoid admiral of the 5th Fleet sat in a meditation pose, her compound eyes reflecting the artificial sunlight that streamed through her window. Impressive, isn't it? Dr. Sarah Chen materialized in his room without any visible means of entry, her image flickering slightly around the edges. A hologram, Zeth 9 realized. We've had to expand the facility 3 times in the past decade. You'd be surprised how many species consider humanity an easy target. How many? Zeth 9 asked, his voice hoarse. Currently? We're housing representatives from 47 different civilizations. You're number 48. Congratulations. Dr. Chen's smile was as warm and genuine as a snake's, though I have to say your empire holds the record for sheer arrogance. Most species send scout fleets first. You brought an entire invasion armada. Zeth 9 looked around his luxurious cell. What do you want from us? Information, initially. Your star charts, weapon specifications, fleet positions, political structure. The usual. Dr. Chen waved her hand dismissively. After that, you become part of our early warning system. Every species that visits our little zoo eventually returns to their homeworld with tales of humanity's hospitality. Word spreads. Most civilizations decide Earth isn't worth the trouble. And those that don't? Well, that's why we keep expanding the facility. Dr. Chen began to pace, her hands clasped behind her back like a professor delivering a lecture. You know what fascinates me about the galactic community? For all your advanced technology, you're remarkably predictable. You see a species that appears primitive and you assume they're inferior. You never consider that they might be primitive by choice. She gestured toward the window, where Earth hung in the star-filled sky like a blue-green jewel. Do you know how long humans have been capable of faster-than-light travel? Not developing it, capable of it. With the technology we've acquired from our guests, we could have been exploring the galaxy centuries ago. Then why haven't you? Because we learned something from studying our visitors. Space is full of predators. Species that view expansion as conquest, resources as things to be taken, other civilizations as obstacles to be removed. Dr. Chen turned to face him directly. We decided we liked our planet better than your galaxy. Zeth 9 felt a chill run down his spine. You're planning to invade? Invade? Dr. Chen laughed, the sound sharp and brittle. Commander, you're still thinking like a conqueror. We don't want your worlds, we don't want your resources, we don't want your technology. We can build better versions ourselves now. What we want is to be left alone. She moved to the window, gazing out at the stars. But your empire doesn't leave people alone, does it? You expand, you conquer, you assimilate. You're a cancer spreading through the galaxy, consuming everything in your path. Empire brings order to chaos, Zeth 9 said automatically, reciting the propaganda he'd been taught since childhood. We unite primitive worlds under your rule. Yes, I've heard the speech. Dr. Chen's reflection in the window smiled coldly. Tell me, Commander, how many species has your empire rendered extinct? How many unique cultures have you unified out of existence? Zeth 9 said nothing. The answer was in the thousands, but those were classified military statistics. We know about the ethereals. Dr. Chen continued conversationally. Peaceful energy beings who communicated through color and light. Your empire decided their dimension was valuable real estate. Took you 3 years to eliminate them completely. She turned back to face him. We know about the Builders, a species that lived for thousands of years and created art on a planetary scale. They offered to share their knowledge freely with any who asked. Your empire wanted their longevity serum, so you dissected them until you figured out how to synthesize it. Each word hit Zeth 9 like a physical blow. These were state secrets, known only to the highest levels of Imperial command. How do you know these things? Commander, we've been collecting intelligence on the Empire for over a century. Every species you've conquered, every world you've strip-mined, every genocide you've committed. We have it all documented and verified. Dr. Chen's hologram began to flicker and change, cycling through images of destroyed worlds, extinct species, and Imperial conquest records. 47 civilizations currently housed in our facility. 47 species that came to Earth expecting easy conquest. Do you know what they all had in common? Zeth 9 shook his head, transfixed by the parade of horrors scrolling past. They were all running from you. The implications hit him like a meteor impact. The Vegans hadn't shared their technology out of kindness or even revenge. They had been fleeing the Empire's expansion. The Quarians, the Zephyrians, the Quell Mining Consortium, all refugees seeking a world distant enough from Imperial space to hide. You turned Earth into a sanctuary, he breathed. We turned Earth into a fortress, Dr. Chen corrected. Every species that found us brought pieces of the puzzle. Faster than light communication from the telegraphers, quantum manipulation from the Vegans, nanotechnology from the Builders. Yes, we managed to save some of them. Dimensional folding from the ethereals before you murdered them all. The hologram stabilized back into Dr. Chen's human form. Individually, each technology was impressive, but limited. Combined with human ingenuity, well, you've seen the results. Zeth 9 looked out at the other prisoners in their comfortable cells. What happens to us now? That depends entirely on your empire. Dr. Chen's expression grew serious. This fleet you brought represents what, 5% of your total military strength? Your high command is going to want to know what happened to it. They'll send investigators, maybe another fleet. Eventually, they'll decide Earth represents a threat that needs to be eliminated. And then we stop hiding. The temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees. Zeth-9 found himself unable to look away from Dr. Chen's eyes. Commander, your empire has spent centuries conquering the galaxy through superior technology and ruthless efficiency. You've never faced an opponent that was both more advanced and more ruthless than you are. Her smile returned, but now it looked nothing like human expression at all. We've had a very long time to prepare for this war, and we've learned from the best teachers in the galaxy. Every species your empire has ever destroyed. The hologram began to fade. Get some rest, Commander. Enjoy the amenities. You're going to be here for a very long time. As Dr. Chen's image disappeared, Zeth-9 was left alone with his thoughts and the growing realization that his species might have finally found something more dangerous than themselves. Outside his window, Earth continued its slow rotation, looking peaceful and inviting in the starlight. But now Zeth-9 could see what his sensors had missed before. The subtle geometric patterns in the cloud formations, the too-perfect distribution of city lights, the almost invisible network of satellites that formed a defensive grid around the entire planet. Earth wasn't a world. It was a weapon, and humanity had just finished loading it. Chapter 4. The Reckoning 6. Months after the disappearance of the Third Fleet, Grand Admiral Krex Prime stood before the Emperor's War Council in the crystalline halls of the Imperial capital. The massive chamber, carved from a single asteroid and suspended in the void between stars, thrummed with tension and barely contained rage. "Explain to me," the Emperor hissed, his ancient voice echoing through neural implants connected to every being in the chamber, how an entire fleet simply vanishes without a trace. Krex Prime's 3 heads moved independently as he consulted data streams flowing directly into his consciousness. As the Empire's most decorated military commander, he had overseen the conquest of 200 worlds. He had never lost so much as a single ship to enemy action. "Majesty," he began carefully, "our long-range sensors detected massive energy discharges in the Sol system at the time of the fleet's last transmission. The signatures were unprecedented, elaborate. Humans appear to have access to quantum manipulation technology on a scale we've never encountered. Our analysis suggests they can redirect energy at the subatomic level, effectively turning our own weapons against us." One of the War Council members, a towering crystalline being whose species had been absorbed into the Empire 3 centuries ago, chimed with disbelief. "Impossible. Our intelligence indicates they haven't even achieved faster-than-light travel." "Our intelligence," Krex Prime said grimly, "appears to have been deliberately compromised." He activated the chamber's holographic display, filling the space above them with images that made even the Emperor's ancient heart skip beats. Ships unlike anything in Imperial databases hung in formation around Earth, their hulls seeming to bend light itself. Energy readings that defied physics. Weapon signatures that suggested the humans had somehow weaponized the fundamental forces of reality. "Where did they acquire this technology?" the Emperor demanded. "We believe from refugees, Majesty, species fleeing our expansion who sought sanctuary in distant systems. The humans appear to have been collecting them for centuries." The War Council erupted in cacophonous debate, voices overlapping in a dozen different languages and communication methods. The Emperor's mental presence slammed down on all of them like a hammer, reducing the chamber to immediate silence. "You're suggesting," the Emperor said slowly, "that a primitive species has been conducting a centuries-long intelligence operation against the Empire, that they've been deliberately positioning themselves as an easy target while secretly building the most advanced military force in known space?" "Yes, Majesty." "And you base this assessment on what evidence?" Krex Prime hesitated. The evidence was incomplete, scattered, largely circumstantial, but it painted a picture that terrified him more than any enemy the Empire had ever faced. Deep analysis of historical records reveals inconsistencies in our intelligence gathering. Probe reports that should have detected quantum manipulation technology but didn't. Communication intercepts that appear too convenient, too perfectly aligned with our expectations. And most significantly, he paused, knowing his next words would likely result in his own execution. Most significantly, Majesty, we can find no record of any other species successfully establishing a foothold in the Sol system. Every expedition sent there has either never returned or returned with reports of primitive, easily conquered humans. Yet archaeological evidence suggests dozens of different alien species have visited Earth over the past millennium. The implications hung in the crystalline air like a toxic cloud. The Empire's expansion had been built on superior intelligence, on knowing their enemies before engaging them. If that intelligence had been corrupted, recommendations, the Emperor growled. 2 options, Majesty. We can write off the Third Fleet as an acceptable loss and avoid the Sol system entirely. Or, we can deploy the First Armada, the full might of the Imperial Navy, 5,000 ships including the World Breaker and the Star Eater. Whatever technology the humans possess, they cannot stand against the combined forces that have conquered half the galaxy. The War Council members shifted nervously. The First Armada had never been fully deployed. It represented nearly 40% of the Empire's total military strength, weapons powerful enough to sterilize entire solar systems. And if they can stand against it? Asked the crystalline counselor. Krex Prime's 3 heads turned to face the questioner in perfect synchronization. Then the Empire has already lost. The Emperor's ancient mind touched each member of the War Council in turn, reading their thoughts, weighing their fears against their ambitions. Finally, he spoke. Deploy the First Armada, but not to Earth. The chamber fell silent. Majesty, Krex Prime ventured. If the humans have been collecting refugee species, then their technology reprise. Sense an amalgamation of everything we've conquered over the past 1,000 years. A direct assault would be inadvisable. The Emperor's mental voice carried undertones of something none of them had ever heard from him before. Uncertainty. Instead, we will force them to come to us. The humans claim to be protectors of refugee species. Then we will give them refugees to protect. Deploy the First Armada to the sanctuary worlds. Every system known to harbor species fleeing imperial expansion. Begin systematic extermination protocols. The strategy was elegant in its cruelty. If the humans truly were collecting refugee species, they would be forced to intervene to protect them. And if they came to the aid of distant worlds, they would be fighting on the Empire's terms, far from their carefully prepared defenses. And if they don't respond? Asked another council member. Then we will have eliminated potential allies, while demonstrating the consequences of defying imperial will. Either way, the Empire benefits. Orders went out within hours. The First Armada, 5,000 ships carrying enough firepower to end civilizations, began moving toward the outer rim worlds where species fleeing imperial expansion had established hidden colonies. But the humans were already waiting for them. Dr. Sarah Chen stood in the command center buried 3 miles beneath the Himalayan mountains, watching real-time displays of Imperial fleet movements throughout the galaxy. The facility had been expanded dozens of times over the past century, its quantum-entangled communication arrays allowing instantaneous contact with every inhabited world within 1,000 light-years. They're moving exactly as predicted, she reported to Admiral Webb, whose image appeared on the primary screen. Full deployment to 17 different refugee worlds. They're trying to force us to fight on their terms. And will we? Dr. Chen smiled, the expression carrying no warmth whatsoever. Oh yes, but not the way they expect. She turned to address the tactical team surrounding her, humans and aliens working together with the seamless coordination of a species that had learned cooperation was the key to survival. Initiate Protocol Omega. All sanctuary worlds, all refugee fleets, all hidden colonies. It's time to remind the galaxy what happens when apex predators stop pretending to be prey. Across human space, ships began launching from hidden bases, not the sleek interceptors that had destroyed Zeth-9's fleet, but massive vessels that dwarfed even Imperial battleships. Each one carried technology that represented the combined knowledge of dozens of extinct civilizations, weapons that the Empire's builders had never imagined possible. But more importantly, each ship carried something the Empire had forgotten existed: hope. The refugees scattered across the galaxy received the same message simultaneously, transmitted through quantum-entangled particles that made Imperial communication encryption look like smoke signals. This is Admiral Marcus Webb of the Earth Defense Force. The Empire has made its choice. They have chosen extinction over coexistence. All refugee species, all hidden colonies, all survivors of Imperial genocide, the time for hiding is over. Humanity stands with you, and together we will remind the galaxy that apex predators evolved for a reason. As the first armada approached the first refugee world, they found it empty. Not abandoned, empty, as if the entire population had simply vanished into the quantum foam of space itself. Then the refugee fleets decloaked. Thousands of ships, representing dozens of species, armed with weapons that bent reality itself. The Empire's scouts had time to send exactly one transmission before being erased from existence. They're everywhere. They're everywhere. The message cut to static, and the war for the galaxy's future began in earnest. Grand Admiral Krex Prime watched his tactical displays with growing horror as Imperial fleets throughout the galaxy reported contact with impossible enemies. Ships that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Weapons that traveled backwards through time to destroy targets before they were fired. Entire battle groups that simply ceased to exist when exposed to weaponized entropy. Status report, he commanded, though he already knew the answer. Catastrophic losses across all sectors, Admiral. We're facing technology that shouldn't be possible. Our weapons are ineffective, our shields are useless, our tactics are obsolete. Krex Prime closed his 3 sets of eyes. In his centuries of service to the Empire, he had never imagined this moment could come. The Empire was eternal, inevitable, unstoppable. Except it wasn't. Open a channel to Earth, he commanded quietly. Sir, open a channel to Earth. It's time to negotiate. Epilogue. The new galaxy, 1 year later, Ambassador Zeth-9 stood in the same crystalline chamber where the War Council had once planned the conquest of 1,000 worlds. But the chamber was no longer suspended between stars in the cold vacuum of space. It had been relocated to Earth's moon, part of the treaty negotiations that had ended the shortest and most decisive war in galactic history. The former commander of the Third Fleet wore diplomatic robes now instead of military armor, though he suspected his new role was no less dangerous than his old one. Across from him sat Dr. Sarah Chen, now bearing the title of Earth's first galactic ambassador, though everyone knew her real job was ensuring the Empire never again threatened peaceful species. The reconstruction is proceeding ahead of schedule, Zeth-9 reported, consulting holographic displays that showed the progress on dozens of worlds. The Vegan homeworld will be habitable again within 2 years. The ethereal dimensional matrices are already showing signs of regeneration. Dr. Chen nodded approvingly. And the Empire's former military assets? Converted to humanitarian and construction vessels as agreed. The Worldbreaker has been remarkably effective at planetary restoration. It turns out weapons designed to destroy worlds work quite well for rebuilding them when properly reconfigured. It was still surreal to Zeth-9, this complete reversal of everything he had believed about the natural order of the galaxy. The Empire had surrendered not because they had been defeated in battle, though they had been catastrophically, but because the alternative was extinction. The humans hadn't wanted to rule the galaxy. They had wanted something far more terrifying. From the Empire's perspective, justice. The war crimes tribunals are proceeding as well, Dr. Chen continued, her tone conversational, but her eyes holding depths that reminded Zeth-9 why his species now feared humanity more than any force in the known universe. We've identified the officers responsible for the ethereal genocide. They'll stand trial on the restored homeworld they destroyed. Zeth-9 shifted uncomfortably. Many of those officers had been his friends, his mentors, his former commanders, but he had seen the evidence, had witnessed the testimonies of survivors his people had tried to exterminate. Justice, he was learning, was often indistinguishable from vengeance when viewed from the wrong side. "There is one matter that requires discussion," he said carefully. "The Emperor's final request." Dr. Chen's expression didn't change, but the temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees. "Go on." "He wishes to know when the executions will begin." For a long moment, Dr. Chen said nothing. Through the transparent aluminum windows, Earth hung in the lunar sky like a blue marble, peaceful and serene. It was hard to believe that this quiet world had brought the galaxy's greatest empire to its knees in less than 6 months. "Ambassador," Dr. Chen said finally, "tell your former emperor that there will be no executions." Zeth-9 blinked in surprise. "But the war crimes, the genocides, will be answered for, yes, but not through execution." She leaned forward, her hands clasped, on the negotiating table that had once been the Emperor's throne. "Do you know what we learned from studying all those refugee species, Ambassador? We learned that every civilization has a choice. They can be predators, or they can be gardeners. I don't understand. Predators consume. They take what they need, and move on, leaving destruction in their wake. Your empire chose to be a predator on a galactic scale." Dr. Chen gestured toward the Earth hanging in the sky. "Gardeners, on the other hand, nurture. They plant, they tend, they help things grow. They understand that a garden produces more food over time than simply eating everything at once." She stood and walked to the window. "Humanity has decided to be gardeners, Ambassador. We're going to help the galaxy grow into something better than it was, and that includes your people. The Empire's leaders will spend the rest of their very long lives helping to rebuild what they destroyed. The Emperor himself will personally oversee the restoration of the ethereal dimension. Your generals will lead construction efforts on the worlds they once conquered. Your admirals will command hospital ships and refugee transport vessels." The elegant cruelty of it struck Zeth-9 like a physical blow. Death would have been mercy compared to forcing the Empire's leadership to spend centuries undoing their life's work. "And if they refuse?" Dr. Chen turned back to him, and for a moment he saw not a human diplomat but the apex predator that had evolved to hunt mammoth with pointed sticks. "Then they'll discover that there are things worse than death, Ambassador. But I don't think it will come to that. Your people are remarkably adaptable when properly motivated." A soft chime indicated the arrival of another transport. Through the window, Zeth-9 could see a sleek vessel approaching the lunar facility, one of the new hybrid ships that combined human engineering with refugee species technology. Its hull seemed to shift and flow like liquid metal, and its engine signatures were unlike anything in the old databases. "Ah," Dr. Chen said, with satisfaction. "That would be the delegation from New Vega, the first graduates from our Joint Technology Program." "Joint Technology Program? Did you think we were going to hoard all this wonderful knowledge to ourselves?" Dr. Chen's smile was genuine now, warm with the pride of a teacher whose students had exceeded expectations. "Every species in the galaxy deserves access to the tools they need to defend themselves. We're sharing everything: defensive technologies, medical advances, agricultural improvements, even some of the more interesting weapon systems for those who might need them." The implications were staggering. Humanity wasn't just reshaping the galactic power structure. They were democratizing advanced technology on a scale never before seen. The smaller civilizations, the ones your empire marked for future conquest, Dr. Chen continued, they're building their own defense fleets now, ships that can stand against anything the old empire ever fielded. Funny how quickly species develop when they're not spending all their resources hiding from conquerors. Through the facility's communication systems, reports flowed in from across the galaxy. The Quarian republics had just completed their first quantum defense grid. The Zephyrian Collective had successfully restored 3 of their species' ancient archive worlds. The survivors of the Builder civilization had begun construction of a new city planet, incorporating architectural techniques that blended art and engineering in ways that defied imperial understanding. "It's beautiful," Zeth-9 murmured, watching. The transformation of everything he had once known. And terrifying. Most beautiful things are, Dr. Chen agreed. The galaxy is learning to grow again, Ambassador. For the first time in 1,000 years, species aren't spending all their energy on survival. They're creating art, exploring new sciences, forming alliances based on mutual benefit rather than mutual defense against imperial expansion. She returned to her seat, but her posture was relaxed now, almost casual. Your people have a choice to make. You can be part of this new galaxy, contributors to something greater than conquest and expansion, or you can continue clinging to the old ways and find yourselves increasingly isolated as the rest of the galaxy moves forward without you. And humanity? What do you gain from all this? Gardening. Dr. Chen's smile became something altogether more predatory. Ambassador, we get to keep our planet, we get to remain undisturbed in our little corner of space while the galaxy sorts itself out. And we get the satisfaction of knowing that no species will ever again face extinction at the hands of would-be conquerors. She leaned back in her chair, looking for all the world like a contented house cat that had just finished rearranging the furniture to its liking. You see, we learned something important from our refugee guests. The galaxy is big enough for everyone, but only if everyone agrees to share. Your empire forgot that lesson. We're making sure no one forgets it again. The transport docked with a barely perceptible vibration, and moments later the facility's doors opened to admit the vegan delegation. Zeth-9 had never seen living vegans. Before, the Empire's records indicated they had been extinct for 2 centuries. Yet here they were, tall and graceful, their large eyes bright with intelligence and something that looked remarkably like hope. Leading them was a vegan female whose presence seemed to fill the room with calm authority. She moved with the fluid grace of a species that had evolved in low gravity, but there was steel in her bearing that spoke of hard-won survival. Ambassador Chen, the vegan said, her voice carrying harmonics that human throats could never produce. The restoration of our homeworld proceeds beyond our most optimistic projections. Our children will breathe their native atmosphere again within the year. Excellent news, Minister Vel 7, Dr. Chen replied, rising to greet the delegation. I'd like you to meet Ambassador Zeth-9, representing the former Galactic Empire in our ongoing negotiations. The vegan turned to study Zeth-9 with eyes that held no hatred, despite everything his people had done to hers. Instead, there was something that might have been curiosity, or even pity. So, she said softly, you are one of those who believed conquest was the natural order of things. Zeth-9 found his voice with difficulty. Yes. I was a commander in the Imperial Navy. I participated in the conquest of 17 worlds. And now I help coordinate their restoration. Minister Vel 7 nodded slowly. Growth requires pruning sometimes. Dead branches must be removed so that new growth can flourish. Your empire was a dead branch, Ambassador, but the tree of galactic civilization need not die with it. She turned back to Dr. Chen. We bring news from the Outer Rim. 3 more species have emerged from hiding, worlds we thought lost forever. They request inclusion in the Restoration Accord. Granted, of course. The more gardeners we have, the more beautiful the garden becomes. As the 2 women discussed the technical details of integrating new species into the rapidly expanding network of galactic cooperation, Zeth-9 found himself studying the transformed facility around him. Where once imperial banners had hung, now, there were works of art created by dozens of different species. Where tactical displays had shown conquest targets, now holographic gardens bloomed with flowers from 100 different worlds. The Empire had believed that strength came from domination. That order required subjugation, but looking around this room, watching former enemies work together to rebuild what had been destroyed, Zeth-9 began to understand what humanity had truly accomplished. They hadn't conquered the galaxy. They had healed it. Ambassador, Dr. Chen said, drawing his attention back to the conversation. Minister Vel 7 has agreed to provide technical assistance for the restoration of the ethereal dimension. Her people's quantum manipulation expertise will be invaluable. That's very generous, Zeth-9 managed. Generosity has nothing to do with it. Minister Vel 7 replied. The ethereals were artists beyond compare. Their dimensional sculptures inspired our own greatest works. To restore them is to restore beauty to the galaxy. That benefits everyone. Even former enemies? Especially former enemies. Beauty has a way of making warriors remember why they chose to fight in the first place. Her large eyes fixed on his with gentle intensity. Your people once created wonders, Ambassador. Before the Empire, before the conquest, the early imperial civilization produced philosophers and artists, scientists and dreamers. Perhaps it's time they remembered how to dream again. The conversation continued for another hour, covering technical details and philosophical implications with equal measure. As the Vegan delegation prepared to leave, Minister Vel 7 paused at the facility's entrance. Ambassador Zeth 9, she said, there is something I would like you to consider. The galaxy is changing, becoming something new and better than it was. But change is never easy, especially for those who must abandon everything they once believed. She moved closer, her voice dropping to a whisper that somehow carried more weight than any shout. Your people are not the first to discover that strength built on fear is ultimately weakness, but they could be among the first to demonstrate that redemption is possible for any species willing to choose growth over conquest. After the delegation departed, Zeth 9 found himself alone with Dr. Chen in the transformed command center. Earth continued its slow rotation in the lunar sky, and for the first time in his life, Zeth 9 found himself looking at it, not as a target or a threat, but as a sanctuary. Doctor, he said quietly, may I ask you something? Of course. When your species first detected imperial expansion in this region of the galaxy, you could have hidden, could have used your technology to mask Earth's presence, to avoid detection entirely. Why didn't you? Dr. Chen was quiet for a long moment, her gaze fixed on her homeworld. When she finally spoke, her voice carried a weight that seemed to encompass centuries of careful planning and patient preparation. Because hiding doesn't solve the problem, Ambassador. It just postpones it. The Empire would have continued expanding, continued destroying, continued turning the galaxy into a wasteland of conquered worlds and extinct species. Eventually, you would have found us anyway. She turned to face him, and in her eyes he saw the same steel that had brought the most powerful empire in galactic history to its knees. But more than that, we realized something important about apex predators. We're not just evolution's answer to prey animals. We're evolution's answer to other apex predators. When a predator grows too large, too dangerous, too destructive, nature produces something capable of stopping it. Her smile was gentle, almost maternal. Your empire needed to be stopped, Ambassador, and we were the only species in the galaxy positioned to do it. Not just technologically, but philosophically. We understood something your people forgot, which is that true strength comes not from what you can destroy, but from what you choose to protect. As if summoned by her words, reports began flowing in from across the galaxy. The first harvest. From restored agricultural worlds. The launch of new exploration vessels designed for discovery rather than conquest. The establishment of art exchanges between species that had been enemies for centuries. The galaxy was learning to grow again. And at the center of it all, a small blue world continued its ancient dance around an unremarkable yellow star, tended by a species that had chosen to be gardeners rather than predators. The Empire had come, looking for easy prey, and found instead something far more dangerous: hope. And hope, as every species in the galaxy was learning, was the most powerful force in the universe.